Morning and welcome back to another CSS Battle. Today we're going to be completing the target for July 17th, 2024. I've got an interesting solution lined up today actually. I'm going to be using some interesting techniques like the CSS triangle technique to make all these triangles, and I'm actually going to recreate this entire target without using any HTML. It should be noted that we have access to the HTML tag and the body tag, even though it's not explicitly on the page. So let's get started. We're going to use the HTML tag, and we're going to add a background to it. It's going to be this orange color. The next thing I'm going to do is style the body tag. I'm going to be using the body tag to recreate this largest triangle here. So first thing we need to do is make a triangle. If you're not familiar with the CSS triangle technique, I'll give you just a quick overview of how it works. So what we're going to start off with is a border. We can add a border of, let's go 70 pixels, solid blue. Now if we give this a width of 0, we can see we just get a square. However, if we add a border top of 140 pixels, solid white, we can use this white color that's been provided. We can see that we get a triangle. Now why is this happening? We can also add a border bottom of 140 pixels, solid green. So as you can see, each side of the border, when the width is 0, becomes a triangle. So if you wanted a triangle pointing upwards, you'd add a border bottom. If you want a triangle pointing down, you can just add a border top. If you want a triangle pointing sideways, you can add a border left, or pointing the other way, a border right. So we can get rid of this border bottom for now, and we need to switch this blue back to transparent. So now we have our triangle. Let's work on the positioning. We need to move it into the center of the page. We can do that with margin. Let's add some margin to the top. We'll add 105 pixels and auto so that it's centered left to right. And there we go. It's positioned where it should be. We can now move on to the ears. So you might be wondering, how are we going to add these ears to the design when we don't have any elements left? Well, we can actually create a pseudo element. We can do this using the body tag, and we can add the before pseudo element. Basically what these pseudo elements do, they add kind of exactly what it sounds like. They add a pseudo element before the body tag. So the first thing we're going to need to add here is the content. Now you can add a string here if you want. As you can see, it's popping up here. However, we don't want any text inside, so we're just going to leave that blank. Just an empty string. Now we're going to need to do the triangle technique again. We'll add a border of 25 pixels, solid transparent. And we'll add a border top, or a border bottom rather. It's going to be 50 pixels, solid white. You can see it here at the bottom of the page. We're going to need to position it. So let's add, to our body actually, let's add a position of relative. This is going to help us because any other elements that we add a position absolute is going to be relative to the body now. So we can add a position of absolute. Let's add a top. It needs to go up, so we're going to add a negative top. Do a negative 214 pixels. And it needs to go left, which is going to be a negative value of 70. And there we go. We have our first ear in place. Now you might be wondering, how are we going to create that second ear? And what we're going to do, we're going to create a drop shadow of this pseudo element. So we can use the filter property. We can add a drop shadow. And we want to move it to the right, so we're going to add a positive value here. Let's try 50 pixels. We want it to go down or up 0 pixels. And we want it to be white. There we go. So we need to move it over a little bit further. Let's try 60, 70, 80, 90. Looks about right. And so now we have both our ears. We're able to do that with the pseudo element on the left side, and creating a drop shadow of the pseudo element to create the right ear. So now all we have left is the eyes. We're going to be doing a very, similar thing that we just did with the ears. So there's another pseudo element that you can use, the after element, and it sounds exactly like it is. It's going to create an element after the body element. So we need to add the content of an empty string. We're going to add a border of 15 pixels, solid, transparent, and we're going to add a border top of 30 pixels, solid orange. So here it is. We can see it just on the edge here. We're going to need to add a position of absolute. And let's move it up as well. We'll move it up 150 pixels. And let's move it left a little bit. We'll move it left 35 pixels. So now we have our left eye. Last thing we need to do is add our filter. It's going to be a drop shadow. We're going to move it over 40 pixels, down 0 pixels, and of course it's going to be orange. Yeah, so there we have it. It looks like we have a pretty good match. We can submit just to be sure. And we do have a 100% match. Yeah, I think this is a pretty interesting solution actually. Just using the HTML and body tag to recreate all these different shapes on the page. We're able to use the CSS technique to create all of these triangle elements using pseudo elements and the drop shadow to kind of duplicate these triangles. So yeah, thanks for watching, and see you in the next one. Bye for now.